Honored guests, members of the United States House of Representatives, members of the United States Senate, and the Speaker of the United States House of Representatives. Thank you for welcoming the Monument's Men. Ladies and gentlemen, the Speaker of the United States House of Representatives, the Honorable John Boehner. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the presentation of the colors by the United States Army Color Guard, the performance of our national anthem, and the retiring of the colors. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing as the Chaplain of the United States Senate, Dr. Barry Black, gives the invocation.
For the greater good, we pray. Is your sovereign name. Amen.
Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, United States Representative from the 7th District of Massachusetts, the Honorable Mike Capuano.
So far, it's just a little bit too somber. I don't know, I guess I'm the only person who thinks you should clap after the national anthem.
Ladies and gentlemen, United States Representative from the 12th District of Texas, the Honorable Kay Granger.
Nelson Atkins Art Gallery in St. Louis. The work and the effort of most of these people who, in spite of the dangerous things they did, were able to survive the war, went on for a long time, and the work they did in the war was usually, it appears now, not very much discussed. But what they did was always historic, what they did was often heroic, and certainly worthy of the Congressional Gold Medal.
Ladies and gentlemen, United States Senator from New Jersey, the Honorable Bob Menendez.
Today we celebrate with the presentation of the Congressional Gold Medal, the Monuments Men, the 350 men and women from 13 countries, including Harry Ettlinger of Rockaway, New Jersey, whose assignment it was to recover, protect, preserve, and return the art and artifacts that disappeared in World War II. Harry is New Jersey's Monuments Man, a German Jew whose family fled to the United States to escape the Nazis, and I'm proud to call him my friend. I'm also proud to have worked with my colleagues on legislation to award the Monuments Men the Congressional Gold Medal they deserve for what they did to save the world's cultural artifacts from being destroyed or lost forever. This wasn't an easy assignment. The fact that 2 Monuments Men were killed in action is evidence enough. But if it wasn't for their efforts, their courage, and their sacrifice, the world may have lost some of the greatest cultural treasures in existence. While the Nazis were trying to destroy Europe, these men and women were trying to save the culture of Europe, the culture of Western civilization, so that it would be preserved, sustained, and handed down to our children and our children's children. The cultural treasures that the Monument Men saved are on display in museums throughout the United States and the world. They recovered and protected works of art from Manet, Rembrandt, Vermeer, Leonardo da Vinci, Donatello, Michelangelo, that had been plundered by the Nazi army and was recovered by virtue of their efforts. And these artists and others are now on display throughout the United States. They worked with combat forces to ensure that great architectural works were not destroyed by the war. These men and women actually are responsible in many ways for the foundation upon which our modern American museum system exists, as many of the Monuments Men became the leaders of some of the greatest cultural institutes in our country. In one of the darkest chapters of human history, where man's inhumanity to their fellow man shocked the world, the Monuments Men were, by their actions, showing us the better angels of our humanity. Harry Ettlinger and all of the 349 Monuments Men are truly heroes who did their duty and saved our cultural heritage, and now they deserve to be honored by Congress. We owe them our thanks, and the world owes them a debt of gratitude. The Congressional Gold Medal is the least that we can do. To all of them, and in their memory for what they did, we recognize them and we thank them on behalf of a grateful nation. May God bless these United States of America.
Ladies and gentlemen, please turn your attention to the television screens for a video presentation.
Another view of the fate of art in war was presented to our soldiers when we penetrated to the heart of Nazism. There, in caves, in mines, and in isolated mountain hideouts, we found that Hitler and his gang, with unerring instinct for enriching themselves, had stored art treasures from their rightful owners throughout conquered Europe. Alongside bar and minted gold were found paintings, statues, tapestries, jewelry, and all else that the Nazis knew mankind would pay much to rescue and to preserve. The credit belongs to the officers and men of the combat echelons whose resisted, even in the heat and fears of battle.
We knew that there was looting going on and that Jews were being dispossessed first. So we were charged with much more than we knew and much more than we could encompass in our minds even, at least I was. So when we got over there, we were kind of felt like, felt like a knight in armor, looking for good things I could do in recuperation of art.
The feeling I had about doing something to salvage Western culture, it was exhilarating. Finally, we could do something positive.
These are the property of all peoples. They're the heritage of the human race, not just the country that they happen to be in. And consequently, even though in enemy territory, we should protect them.
God bless us. God bless our allies for this. It was an honor to work for the MFA&A. As close to a disinterested organization doing good as I was ever involved with.
This small group in the Monument Fine Arts and Archives section established a philosophy that was really new as far as civilization was concerned. The whole concept of and returning the rightful property to the rightful owner was a momentous event in civilization.
That for democracy, at least, there always stands beyond the materialism and destructiveness of war the ideals for which it is fought. It is our privilege to pass on to the coming centuries treasures of past ages.
Ladies and gentlemen, historian and author, Mr. Robert M. Edsall.
Mr. Speaker, members of Congress, ambassadors, and other honored guests, we are gathered to celebrate the achievements of some 350 men and women from 14 nations who served in the Monuments, Fine Arts, and Archives section. We know these men and men and women, scholar soldiers, as the Monuments Men. Only 6 are still living. Anne Olivier Bell and Reuben Sammy were unable to travel. However, Bernard Taper, Richard Barancik, Motoko Fujishiro Huthwaite, and Harry Ettlinger are with us today. So too are 175 family members of Monuments Men since passed. Our founding fathers committed to us the cause of freedom. The Monuments Men did no less for the respect and preservation of our shared cultural treasures. As early as 1942, George Stout, who would become the leader of the Monuments Men in Europe and establish their operation in post-war Japan, argued for the creation of cultural preservation officers during war. To safeguard these things will affect the course of battles, Stout wrote, but it will affect the relations of invading armies with those people and their governments. To safeguard these things will show respect for the beliefs and customs of all men and will bear witness that these things belong not only to a particular people, but also to the heritage of mankind. The death of 2 Monuments Men during combat, British Major Ronald Balfour and American Captain Walter Hutchhausen, would seem to argue that art is worth the loss of life. But Monuments man Dean Keller, an artist himself, missed his son's 3rd, 4th, and 5th birthdays while serving in Italy, stated otherwise. The life of one American boy is worth infinitely more than any monument I know, Keller said. But like the other Monuments men, he risked their lives not to save beautiful objects, but to defend the very cause George Stout wrote about in 1942, preservation of our shared cultural heritage. Dare to dream big dreams, because today's celebration, the culmination of 9 years of service to these men and women, is a dream come true for me. And thanks to the dedicated work of several authors, researchers, archivists, and an attorney who are among our audience, and the longtime advocacy of the Monuments Men Foundation for the Preservation of Art, the achievements of these heroes of civilization are now widely known. We live in hope that the wisdom of George Stout, the sacrifices of Monuments men Balfour and Hutchhausen, and the dedication of all those who served in the Monuments, Fine Arts, and Archives section will not reside in our memory. Rather, that they will live in our hearts to inspire us to do a far better job protecting and preserving those things of knowledge and beauty that we have inherited from the past.
Ladies and gentlemen, the United States Army Band, Pershing's Own, and the United States Army Voices.
This heart of mine embraces all day through. In that small cafe, the park across the way, the children's carousel, the chestnut tree, a wishing well. Don't sit under the apple tree with anyone else but me. Anyone else but me. Anyone else but me. No, no, no. Don't sit under the apple tree with anyone else but me. Till I come marching home. Don't go walking down Lover's Lane with anyone else but me. Anyone else but me. Anyone else but me. No, no, no. Don't go walking down Lover's Lane with anyone else but me. Till I come marching home. I'm so afraid the plans we made beneath those moonlit skies will fade away. You're bound to stray if stars get in your eyes. So don't sit under the apple tree with anyone else but me. Till I come marching home. Home, home, home. lane, no, walking down a lover's lane till you see me. When you see me marching home, then we'll go arm in arm and sit down under the apple tree. Be just you and me when I come marching home.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Democratic leader of the United States House of Representatives, the Honorable Nancy Pelosi.
Good afternoon, everyone. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Leader. For our speaker, this is his last gold medal ceremony, and so it's an emotional time for many reasons, including that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for making it so lovely. I want to join in acknowledging the leadership of Senator Menendez, Senator Blount, Madam Chair Granger, Congressman Capuano of Massachusetts. Robert Edsel, you're a hero to us. Thank you. Thank you so much. As author, founder, and chairman of the Monuments Men Foundation and Preservation of Art, you have done such a large part in preserving art as well. Thank you. We're honored by your presence. In March of 1941, President Franklin Roosevelt dedicated the National Gallery of Art just down the mall from here. As the crowd gathered, Britain struggled beneath the bombs of the Blitz. Nazi occupiers looted the finest art of Western Europe and ransacked the property of Jewish families, a vast program of theft and destruction. And with the world at war, as the President Roosevelt opened a new American home for the world's masterworks, President Roosevelt spoke the fundamental truth at the heart of what the Monument Men's mission was. Whatever these paintings may have been to men and women who looked at them generations back, today they are works of art. Today they are the symbols of the human spirit, symbols of the world the freedom of the human spirit has made. As we saw in the film, President Eisenhower said, ideal. By General Eisenhower. Across a whole world set ablaze by wars against the last thrashes of the Nazis' nihilism, preserve the treasures of humanity. That was the charge. Ranging thousands of miles, operating with few resources and little direct authority, the Monuments Men often relied more on their own grit, ingenuity, and power of persuasion than other things. As of men and women, I want to emphasize the women, and never rescue artifacts in Axis hands and protect them through the fire of the Allies' military advance. Some gave their lives in the effort. But thanks to the Monument Men, the war that claimed so much, that took the lives of so many, would not also destroy the creativity that connects us to the heritage of civilization. And because of their perseverance and painstaking detective work, millions and millions of artifacts were saved for the public and or returned to their rightful owners. The poet Shelley once wrote, "The greatest force for moral good is imagination." It is imagination that gives us the creativity and of the arts, that our common humanity finds a home. We see what we have in common. We understand other people's thinking. So this was not just about the arts, It was about the creativity and the imagination, which is a force for good. With the last living monuments men among us, and women, we stand in the presence of greatness. Thank you for your greatness of courage, your greatness. Sergeant Harry Ettlinger, we'll be hearing from you. Private First Class Richard Baranchik, thank you and welcome. Motoko Fujishiro Huthwaite, thank you, ma'am. And Lieutenant Bernard Taper of Berkeley and my city of San Francisco. You saw him in the film. I also want to acknowledge, because as was said earlier, so many family members are here, just to name one more, Maya Melrose attending ceremony on behalf of her great aunt, Mary Regan Quessenberry, another woman of the monuments. But thank you to all of the family members who are here. As we present the Congressional Gold Medal to the monuments men and women, we recognize the truth of our own to add President Roosevelt's wisdom to the gallery. I'm so happy that so many ambassadors are here. Welcome, ambassadors, to be with us as we observe that today the art of the MFAA returned, the monuments they saved. These things stand not only as artifacts of the inspiration, devotion, and artistry of distant ages, they endure as testimony to the boundless determination, passion, and creativity of the men and women we are honored with this gold medal ceremony today. Your receiving it brings luster to this honor. Congratulations and thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Democratic leader of the United States Senate, the Honorable Harry Reid.
In a war against humanity, nothing is sacred to the aggressors. So it was for the Axis powers during World War II. As our troops rolled across the globe, millions and entire countries and cultures fell victim to this war machine. But as we've learned, even history itself was threatened by Adolf Hitler and his accomplices. Historic structures were bombed into oblivion. Museums were plundered. Priceless family heirlooms were lost forever. Sadly, though, the battle against art, culture, and our own history is being waged today. We've heard a number of my friends prior to my speaking mention this. The vile terrorist group ISIS wantonly destroys vestiges of some of the world's most ancient civilizations. ISIS recently bulldozed the ancient city of Hatra, which was established by Alexander the Great 300 years before Christ. ISIS destroyed the holy site, believed to be the tomb of the prophet Jonah. And recently, ISIS used large quantities of explosives to destroy a 2,000-year-old Phoenician temple in Syria. ISIS then publicly executed a professor of antiquities for refusing to reveal the location of more treasures. In Afghanistan, the Taliban has destroyed giant sandstone statues of Buddha that were 1,700 years old. That's not all. In Timbuktu, terrorists set fire to a library containing thousands and thousands of priceless manuscripts dating back to the 13th century. And with each artifact that's destroyed, each ancient ruin is crushed, and each culture toppled, a small piece of humanity is lost for eternity. That's what makes it significant. Today we praise the brave men and women who fought to preserve and restore the remnants of our past. What started as just a handful of artists, curators, and educators swelled to about 400 servicemen and civilians. These courageous individuals safeguard humanity's prized possessions in the midst of the world's most. It was an honor for me, before we came here, to meet each of you individually. I'll always remember that. And to the families of the hundreds of monument men and women who are no longer with us, I say this: you should be very proud. Your loved ones served as guardians of history. As for the rest of us, it's not enough to recognize the accomplishments of the monuments men, because if we neglect to act now to preserve what ISIS and others have not destroyed, we will have failed. We must honor the work of the monuments men and women by emulating their courage and following in their footsteps. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Majority Leader of the United States Senate, the Honorable Mitch McConnell.
A few years ago, Louisville's Speed Art Museum unveiled an exhibit entitled Kentucky Home, the Colonial Revival Houses of Stratton O. Hammond. Since designing his first house as a teenager in the 1920s, Hammond went on to become one of the most popular architects of the last century. His homes still dot the streets of Louisville today. I'm pleased to report that Stratton Hammond is also a fellow graduate of DuPont Manual High School. He set the bar very high for those of us who followed, and not just because of his architecture. Hammond joined the Army in World War II. He participated in the Normandy invasion in 1944. And thanks to his background in art and architecture, he eventually settled into the Palace of Versailles as monuments officer at General Eisenhower's headquarters. This Kentuckian, who unfortunately passed away in 1997, is one of the hundreds of monuments men we honor today. These men and women came from different countries. They hailed from different backgrounds, but they shared a common mission: to defend colonnades of civilization through crucibles of war. One man would flee Nazi Germany the day after his bar mitzvah, only to return and liberate hundreds of looted cultural treasures in the salt mines of Heilbronn. Another, a Scottish-born, London-raised, and American-educated writer, would become an art detective who helped recover priceless paintings. There's the native Chicagoan who would for instance, or as curators. Even Stratton Hammond returned to his architectural firm in Kentucky, though it's worth mentioning that his firm began specializing in the effects of explosives on structural integrity. The point is that the service of the monuments men often went unheralded. Of saying thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Speaker of the United States House of Representatives, the Honorable John Boehner.
In a few moments, we'll have the presentation of the medal, and at that time, I'll ask our honorees to join us here on the stage. But as some of you may know, this is the last time that I'm going to have this privilege. And really, it's been quite a privilege. In the opening, I mentioned the first person to be awarded a Congressional Gold Medal was General George Washington himself in 1776. Well, as you can imagine, things got a little busy after that. And so it took about 14 years for Washington to actually get that medal. Over that time, 4 different people were in charge of the project, including none other than Thomas Jefferson. Jefferson kept detailed notes on how the medals should be executed. He found a way to pay for all of it, and he had the work done in France. He then personally delivered the medal to Washington in New York, along with a box of medals for his men. That's a chain of preservation which today's honorees can certainly appreciate. But because our founders followed through on this and on so many other things, we have this great tradition that's older than the country itself. We have this golden link to a time when America was merely this radical idea that anyone could contribute to the common good. So just look at who we're honoring today. A small group of people who, acting purely on their own passion and courage, reclaimed the world's most valuable treasures. They reattached the tendons to the bone that is civilization's identity. Ladies and gentlemen, we're the luckiest people on earth. We get to tell these stories. We get to toast our heroes. And we get to fall in love with freedom all over again. Because knowing who we're from shows our children what they can be. No task is more precious than that. No award is greater than this. And so for the Monuments Men, the United States Mint has struck a Congressional Gold Medal, which we will present now and always on behalf of a grateful nation. Congratulations. All right, we're going to do the presentation of the medal here. So look right here at the camera. There we go. Thank you. No. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Monument Men veteran, Mr. Harry Ettlinger.
Ladies and gentlemen, 2 years ago, during World War II, the United States established a policy that made the preservation of artistic and cultural treasures of Europe a priority. This was contrary to the policies of the leaders of our enemy, who not only prioritized the murders of millions, but also the destruction of art and culture they deemed inferior. Thus, a relatively tiny international group of men and women, led by the United States and the United Kingdom, embarked on implementing this new policy. The mission was dangerous. 2 monuments men were killed in combat to protect works of art. In the closing month of the war, what this small group discovered was nothing less than the greatest blunder ever perpetrated in the history of civilization. I'll get to the page. Today, only 5 Americans and 1 British, now referred to as monuments men, are still alive. 4, and Robert Edsel, our champions, are here today. I, the babies of these soldiers, on behalf of the monuments men alive and those who have gone to the great beyond, graciously accept this great honor that the members of Congress of the United States have bestowed upon us today. At the end of the war, World War II, the policies of Western allies made clear that the victors do not belong to the war. Let us today openly restate this policy. Let us today openly promote the concept. Let us again and again announce to the people of the world that their culture will be cherished as long as they respect the culture of others. God bless you. God bless America.
Ladies and gentlemen, the United States Army Band, Pershing Zone, and the United States Army Voices.
From out Chicago way, he had a boogie style that no one else could play. He was a top man at his craft, but then his number came up and he was gone with the draft. He's in the army now, a blowing reveille. He's the boogie woogie bugle boy of Company B. They made him blow a bugle for his Uncle Sam. It really brought him down because he couldn't jam. The captain seemed to understand. goes at 8 to the bar. He can't blow a note unless the bass and guitar is playing with him. And the company jumps when he plays reveille. He's the boogie boogie bugle boy of Company B. The boys asleep with Boogie every night and wakes them up the same way in the early light. They clap their hands and stamp their feet because they know how he plays when someone gives him a beat. He really breaks it up when he plays reveille. He's a boogie boogie bugle boy of Company B. A root, a toot, a toot-a-yada, toot-toot. He blows it 8 to the bar. Can't blow a note unless plays the guitar is whoa with him. And the company jumps when he plays reveille. He's the boogie boogie bugle boy of Company B.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand as the chaplain of the United States House of Representatives, the Reverend Patrick Conroy, gives the benediction.
Let us pray. God, would have been lost. Today, only 6 remain. Ann Oliver Popham Bell, Reuben Sammy, Richard Barancic, Bernard Taper, Motoko Fujishiro Huthwaite, Harry Ettlinger, Alf Ettlingen. May the breath of God uphold their noble and heroic story. And may God's gift of artistic genius, wherever it emerges, no matter upon whom it is bestowed, be honored and protected by all peoples and all nations of goodwill. As we honor yet another heroic group of soldiers from World War II, we ask your blessing on all women and men in military service, their families, and all those who put themselves in harm's way for the safety of others. God, bless America, and grant us peace both in the present and with you forever. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated for the departure of the official party.